So a major Russian attack on Ukraine hitting an American-owned factory. It's causing concern over the U.S.-led peace talks between the nations. It comes as new reports outline Vladimir Putin's demands for trilateral, including his push to control the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine in exchange for freezing the current front lines. And there's more. Fox News senior strategic analyst, retired four-star General Jack Keane. And, General, perhaps the biggest thing is they don't want any international troops for security guarantees. That's a huge discrepancy from what he told Witkoff last week and what we thought came out of Alaska.
Well, I think he made a general statement. I don't know what the language was used with Steve Witkoff, but I think he made a general statement to the president when he was with him, you know, dealing with security guarantees being reasonable, something we should discuss. But I think anybody knowing Putin, when you get into the details of this, that's something else again. So listen, it's a negotiated item for sure, but we should put it on the table what security guarantees Ukraine absolutely needs and what the United States should be providing as part of that multinational force Ukraine.
What do you think of the fact that they hit a U.S. factory that does electronics, had nothing to do with military in Ukraine? Do you think that was a message or just incidental?
No, I'm not certain they knew that was a U.S. appliance factory. Certainly the killing of innocent Ukrainian citizens on a regular basis is really his target. He doesn't target military infrastructure very often. He targets killing civilians to put pressure on Zelenskyy.
So I wanted to bring you to a Truth Social post the president put on, which shows he's getting a little miffed by Putin, perhaps. He said, quote, "It is very hard, if not impossible, to win a war without attacking an invader's country. It's like a great team in sports that has a fantastic defense, but is not allowed to play offense. There is no chance of winning. It is like that with Ukraine and Russia." So that's his way of saying the slow walking of weapons was from the President Biden's regime really led to this. We can't let them lose, but we can't let them win either.
No, I mean, the president, in making those remarks, certainly is very much aware of how much Ukraine was being held back, and particularly when Ukraine had the momentum early on in the war, had stopped the Russian advance, and then began to take territory back very successfully. And we were not giving them tanks at the time. We were not giving them long-range offensive fires. We were not giving them the F-16s with trained pilots. All of those capabilities eventually came. And then even when we gave them long-range offensive missiles that could reach deep into Russia, into their infrastructure, their military bases, where their logistics was, we wouldn't let them fire. We wouldn't let them target that. It wasn't until November of last year, during the election month, that Biden released that restriction because he knew the outcome. President Trump was coming into power. That's how restricted Ukraine has been, and they've always had one arm tied behind their back. The president obviously is recognizing this as going forward, and knowing we could be in a much better place if Biden hadn't held back, one, the weapons themselves initially, and then two, how to use those weapons.
So you sent me this rough outline of what you think should happen for security guarantees, and you say the Ukraine provides security guarantees, and this is what it would look like: command and control, intelligence, logistics, brigade task force on the ground providing training to Ukrainian forces. So until we can get international forces there, you think we should be there in Ukraine?
Yeah, we have to be. I mean, the president hasn't made any decisions on this. The chairman is working this with the chief of defenses of the countries that want to support. The national security advisor, dual-hatted Marco Rubio, Secretary of State and national security advisor, is working with the countries involved. Eventually, options will come to the president. We can move forces we already have in Europe to provide assistance in Ukraine. I'm telling you straight out, the Europeans do not have the capability to provide command and control of the majority of the forces. Should be Euros on the ground at a defensive belt. But we continue to provide intelligence. We have to provide logistics. They don't have the scale to do that. We should put a brigade task force on the ground in Ukraine, away from the defensive belt, training the Ukrainians in combined arms maneuver, something they cannot do, and the Euros aren't very good at it, just being frank with you here. Air defense, they need more of it. Some of that should be on the ground. Some of that could be in the border states. Air power, we have a sufficient air power to cover the force already in Europe. Doesn't have to be in Ukraine.
Right.
But yes, options will come to the president. He'll make the decision.
And the president has this to think about, too. He's ordered destroyers off the coast of Venezuela, ostensibly to put pressure on the cartels and the drug trade. But China has warned us not to get involved and don't violate the sovereignty, if I could paraphrase, of Venezuela. China warning us in our own hemisphere? How would you take that?
Well, I would blast them for it, and with similar rhetoric, but I think it's pretty rich, isn't it? They violated Taiwan and the Philippines, air interdiction zones and maritime zones on a regular basis. I'm not talking about occasionally. I'm talking about every single day in Taiwan, hundreds of times a month.
Right.
They're in violation. We're not doing anything like that off the coast of Venezuela or South America in general. We're in international waters taking down narco traffickers who are at sea. We have ships doing it, a naval task force. We have Marines in that area if they're needed as well. It makes sense to get after these narco traffickers. And certainly they're coming out of Venezuela. They're coming out of other Latin American, South American countries. And we're upping our game to do that. It is the right decision.
I just hope we find a way to get Maduro out. It will solve a lot of problems. General Jack Keane, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.